J'ouvre maintenant cette séance. Bienvenue.
I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 72 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, March the 7th, 2023, the committee meets to discuss its study on the adapting infrastructure to face climate change. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of Thursday, June 23, 2022. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application.
All witnesses have been sound tested for today's meeting for the benefit of our interpreters, and all have passed the tests. Appearing before us today as witnesses, we have, as an individual, Mr. Patrick Mitchell, retired Chief, Kanaka Bar Indian Band by video conference. Welcome. From the Canada West Foundation, we have Mr. Carlo Dade, Director, Trade and Investment Centre. From the Insurance Bureau of Canada, we have Chris Roll, Manager and Senior Advisor, Climate Adaptation and Food Policy, and Craig Stewart, Vice President, Climate Change and Federal Issues. La municipalité de Saint-Antoine
Saint-Antoine-de-Richelieu, we have Jonathan Chalifou, Mayor.
Of Norfolk County, we have Amy Martin, Mayor, welcome, and Sydney Clarice, Project Lead, Energy and Facilities. And from Watershed Watch Salmon Society, we have Lena Aziz, Director, Habitat Programs by video conference. We will begin now with our opening remarks, and we'll start off with Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Mercy, thank you. My name is Patrick Mitchell, and I'm a resident of Lytton, British Columbia. And in 29 days, it'll be the 2-year anniversary of the Lytton Fire. The Lytton Fire wiped out an entire town, destroyed roads, destroyed electricity, destroyed communications, and basically paralyzed the region for months. What happened on June 30th of 2021 wasn't unexpected, it was just unprecedented. My community of Kanaka Bar, I became aware of climate change as early as 1990 when we got back on the land and we saw something different was changing. By 1992, the word anthropogenic climate change was indicated. And we became to realize as an Indigenous community that the world's earth, land, and water was heating up at an unprecedented rate, creating these extreme weather events, which we call heat, wind, rain, and cold. By 2010, we'd written a document called Memory, Loss, and Sorrow, which basically summarized contact, colonization, and where my community was up till 2010. Building on that work that we had done, in 2015, we created a land use plan that assessed all the impacts on our traditional territory. And I believe it was 2018. I don't have my document in front of me. I've shared that with the clerk so that the committee can reference it. We created a climate change assessment and transition plan, and we embarked on protecting our homes, our people, our property, and our infrastructure from those extreme weather events of heat, wind, rain, and cold, and the ground impacts they trigger, be it drought, be it wind, be it fire, be it flooding, be it landslides. We completed the climate change transition report and basically set about protecting ourselves, upgrading, renovating, retrofitting our infrastructure as we could, but also designing and building new infrastructure that can withstand this new weather, this new extreme weather. And we wanted to do this not because we were concerned about the economy. We were concerned about our future generations. Our future generations are entitled to have the same, if not more, access to life and quality of life than we enjoy today. My community sits down here and takes the resources that we have, people, time, technology, and money, and we invested in our future generations. What we've done to protect our roads, our wastewater treatment systems, our water, our electricity, our communication, it's not a cost, it's an investment. In 2021, Kanakabar replaced its climate change transition plan with something called a community resiliency plan that sets out projects, programs that we'll be implementing over the next 5 years that once again reestablish these foundations that are resilient to extreme weather. And so we've now said that to be resilient is to be able to shelter in place during an extreme weather event and then repair the systems that give us quality of life. We have been warning the people that come to our region, the north end of the Fraser Canyon, for years, that the infrastructure that they had built was built quickly and needs to be upgraded. The atmospheric river that hit the region in November of 2021 wiped out the roads which are still not rebuilt because nobody expected that much rain. We did. We warned people. Change your culvert sizes. Spend $60,000 today to save $6 million tomorrow. Do not go into our feature in response mode. Change the conversation from cost to investment. Keep our roads open. To do that, replace the culverts from 1957. The railroad was built in 1884, CPR. CNR was built in 1913. They have not changed out their culverts. These right-of-ways that bisect my region, they maintain their land in a very poor way. And I've said that they, in effect, become dynamite fuses to our community. So I just wanted to share with the committee that I am optimistic for our collective future. And the fact that this community is looking at adapting our infrastructure for climate change gives me hope. And our children and grandchildren are worth it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Retired Chief Mitchell. Next, we have Mr. Dade. Mr. Dade, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to be here this morning.
Testify in English. Je suis content d'essayer de...
I'm pleased to answer questions in French, but I'll testify in English.
The approach that I'll take with the committee today is a little bit different. I like to come at this from a different end of the spectrum in terms of how we deal with resiliency. Specifically, what we do with the recommendations and the learnings from this study. There is an opportunity, I think, to have greater effectiveness for the committee's recommendations and your learnings on resiliency. The Canada West Foundation, which is the think tank, the public policy research, dissemination, education, and advocacy organization for the 4 Western provinces working to create a strong West in a strong Canada, has for the past 10 years, with a collection of national organizations, the Business Council of Canada, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the Construction Association, Western Road Builders, and recently CME, we've been working on resolving an existential threat to Canada's prosperity: the decline in global perceptions of the quality of our transportation infrastructure. Over the past 10 years, several governments, there's been a consistent decline in the global rankings of Canada's transportation infrastructure. We've gone from being viewed as having top 10 infrastructure a decade ago to 32nd globally in the specific measure of transport infrastructure from the World Economic Forum. The World Bank rankings on Logistics Performance Index show a similar decline for Canada. This is a systemic problem. It's not one strike, one bad flood, one bad winter. It's a systemic problem. So we've been working on a systemic solution to the problem with the aforementioned groups. What the research, 10 years of research has shown, amongst other things, is that Canada is one of the few G7, one of the few G20 countries not to engage in national infrastructure planning. Long-term, 10 to 30-year planning done on a regular basis with long-term pipelines of projects. You begin to see where this leads to the work that you're doing on resiliency. Of the recommendations in our report, There are 7 steps needed in the national plan: collecting data, understanding the one system for supply chain and logistics that connect the entire country, being able to turn data into decisions, but also planning and decision-making based on national or criteria of national significance. Long-term criteria, rigorous criteria that apply across decades. This is the opportunity, I think, for the work of the committee and to think about the report you're writing and how you shape your recommendations to fit into the development of this national plan, which will include these criteria. If you want seriousness about dealing with resiliency, if you want seriousness and rigor in terms of dealing with environmental impacts, the best way, I would argue, or the research shows one of the most efficient ways, is to incorporate the criteria into long-term national plans. You signal the private sector that above and beyond the reasons everyone presenting has shown you of the seriousness of the problem, there's another business case to do this. The long-term signal that you do sends this. And I'll just conclude by noting that this is not just another report recommendation. The coalition we have from the private sector has been joined by the premiers. The call for Canada's first national infrastructure plan will be put on the table at this July's Council of the Federation meeting and has the support of premiers coast to coast. So this is something that is indeed coming. And as you think about your report, as you think about the input and the recommendations you get, I'm here to urge you to shape those recommendations and thinking to fit into the development of a national infrastructure plan. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dade. Next, we have Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stewart, the floor is yours. 5 minutes, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Thank you for inviting IBC to present to you today. Accompanying me is Ms. Chris Roll, IBC's longtime flood expert. Insurance Bureau of Canada is the trade association for over 200 companies that insure cars, homes, and businesses in our country. I want to recognize that we're in the city of Ottawa and on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. I also want to recognize our firefighters at this time, many of whom are volunteers and who are working tirelessly even as we speak to help keep Canadians safe. Last year, I co-chaired the Advisory Committee on Disaster Resilience and Security, which provided very specific recommendations for the National Adaptation Strategy. Our committee submitted those recommendations to Minister Blair and Minister Guilbeault. We stressed that this country lacks urgency when it comes to building resilience to climate change. For the past decade, the debate about emissions reduction has consumed all of the oxygen in the room. And governments have been playing bait and switch with climate change, amplifying catastrophic wildfires and floods to drive energy policy while slow-walking the serious changes needed to defend Canadian homes and businesses. We all know this is true, and this is why we welcome your study. Our experts on disaster resilience recommended that the National Adaptation Strategy adopt explicit near-term targets to reduce disaster risk and increase recovery. These 5-year targets state that by 2028, for instance, mortality due to extreme heat has been reduced by 70% and annual hospitalizations by 50%. All new construction in areas at high risk of wildfire include fire-smart resilience measures, and over 20% of homes identified at being at high risk of riverine and coastal flooding are protected.
Designed properly, infrastructure programming can help achieve our climate adaptation targets. Here's how. Actuaries contracted by Public Safety Canada estimate that Canada's losses for residential flooding will amount to $2.9 billion per year on average for the next decade, and will grow from there. They found that only 10% of homes account for 90% of those losses. So, when designing a new disaster mitigation and adaptation fund, doesn't it make sense to focus funding on defending those at highest risk? We know where they are. If 1.5 million properties account for 90% of the risk, shouldn't we target funding to at least protect the 300,000 of them at the highest level of risk? Budget 2023 announced the creation of Canada's National Flood Insurance Program. a massive step forward for which Minister Blair and his officials at Public Safety Canada must be congratulated. When designing that program, we should learn from the American experience, where they have created a linkage between the investments a community makes in flood mitigation and the premiums that residents pay for that flood insurance. This way, there's a positive incentive for communities to reduce risk, and their efforts are recognized. With that background, here are our 4 recommendations for your infrastructure study. First, we strongly reinforce FCM's recommendation. The fall economic statement should allocate $2 billion in surge funding for infrastructure that increases disaster mitigation, followed by $1 billion per year thereafter for 10 years. 2, the Canada Infrastructure Bank should be allocated a further $2 billion for disaster mitigation and challenged to find a further $4 billion in matching private capital. The challenge is too great for the public sector to meet alone. The financial sector has an investment role to play. And third, infrastructure funding should be prioritized to reach a near-term adaptation target, defend 300,000 homes at highest risk of flooding by 2028. And fourth, following the lead of the U.S., premiums for Canada's new National Flood Insurance Program should be designed to reflect the infrastructure investments made by communities that reduce their flood risk. Thank you.
Thank you both very much for your opening remarks. Prochainement, nous avons Monsieur.
Next, Mayor Chalifou. You have 5 minutes. Hello, and thank you very much for hearing me today. Today, I'm going to talk about a situation at Saint-Anne-de-Richelieu, Saint-Denis-de-Richelieu. These are 2 small villages. For several years now, we no longer have the opportunity to have the ice bridge that would link both our communities, and we lived in symbiosis during the winter. We can agree that both communities represent a detour of 50 kilometers. Without the ice bridge, with the ice bridge, it was 50 meters. It's on the other side of the river. What's happening is that during the summer, we have a summer crossing for cars and foot passengers, but things are dire in the winter. In November 2018, the municipality Saint-Denis-Saint-Antoine allowed for the creation of an ice bridge. The period is shortening over 5 years. The ice bridge has been in existence only 3 times. The responsible wants to retire, and it's an art to create an ice bridge. With the changing climate conditions, it's impossible to create the bridge. We also have the arrival of the Contrecoeur port. There will be an important maritime extension, and the axis of the ice bridge. And what we're trying to do is to have a crossing, a year-long crossing between both of our communities. We've done preliminary research to try to correct the issue with a system allowing for boats to cross during the winter. It costs a lot. We're talking about $650,000 study just to look at the system. That was in 2019. So now it's over $1 million. In parallel, with regards to the current situation, it's a private company. They don't want to offer service during the winter, even though it might be possible to do so. We're looking at Ottawa. We need solutions. All of these operators of bac à câble, there are 3 that cross. the municipalities don't have any word to say. It would be good for Ottawa to give us the right to speak, to renew permits, and to have agreements in order to cross the river and to be able to set conditions so that a municipality can benefit from this service on a year-long basis. Perhaps you want to buy back these ferries and even looking further, to have a construction of modern electrified ferries allowing for year-long crossings, eliminating the icebreakers. And we know that there will be a maritime strategy, and this might be part of it as a project. The help of the federal government is essential in order to keep this link between both of our communities year-long. We can use the example of Bell Island in Newfoundland and Labrador. They've had a crossing over the year, and this has had positive economic impacts, and that's what we would like for our communities. It will allow us to be able to create links with our surrounding municipalities for fire control services and police services to allow us to better manage both cities, and one day perhaps even amalgamate some municipalities if we had an efficient way to ferry between both communities. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Maire. Next, we have Mayor Amy Martin. Mayor Martin, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to appear before the Standing Committee and provide testimony on the critical infrastructure needs as it relates to climate change in my home community. My name is Amy Martin, and I'm the Mayor of Norfolk County, a single-tier municipality of close to 70,000 people located in southwestern Ontario. I'm pleased to be here today in person in the city of Ottawa, which is built upon the unceded Anishinaabe-Algonquin territory, and I would also like to take a moment and recognize our MP, Dr. Leslyn Lewis. In part, my testimony includes details relevant to Norfolk County, but also the following recommendations for the committee. We recognize that successful actions related to climate change go beyond municipal boundaries, and that the federal government is best positioned to provide comprehensive, coordinated supports to the local level. Therefore, we ask that the Government of Canada provide local governments with dedicated, ongoing, additional funding in support of critical infrastructure needs that respond to climate change. And furthermore, we encourage leveling the playing field by way of giving consideration to large, mid-size, and small municipal applications and having them judged fairly. Rural and urban municipalities of our size are typically competing against the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, for funding and resources. To start, I'd also like to acknowledge the role that FCM has played in helping municipalities, including Norfolk County, in drafting a climate adaptation plan. Without this funding, we would not have a plan. Norfolk County is located on the shores of Lake Erie, home to one of the Great Five Lakes in Canada. We cover 1,600 square kilometers of sandy shores, rich agricultural soil, and a forest that sees 25% tree coverage. We're home to a UNESCO World Biosphere in Long Point, and we are the top Canadian producers of asparagus, tart cherries, ginseng, peppers, pumpkins, squash, zucchini, and countless Ontario top producers as well. All of this to say that climate change and the environment is very important to us. From wind, snow, ice, storms, power outages, and potential power shortages to come, floods, shoreline erosion, and most concerning, water and wastewater quantity and quality concerns, coupled with far-reaching food security alerts. The growing infrastructure gap that Norfolk County faces is alarming, and the climate concerns that are associated with the gaps staggering, yet largely unfunded. A previous FCM deputation informed you all of the infrastructure gap that many municipalities are facing, with high demands for repair and or replacement totaling an estimated $175 billion, and these figures do not account for climate change infrastructure. One project in isolation in Norfolk County totals over $390 million. Our interurban water infrastructure upgrade plan adds much needed capacity and efficiency, as well as a safer water drinking system for our community. With infrastructure upgrades like these, we don't have resources left over to prioritize climate change initiatives. We simply don't collect enough money to address our critical in-house concerns. Norfolk County has an annual $119 million operating budget. However, we only budget for $102,000 in climate change initiatives. totaling 0.0019% of our annual funding. This happens for many reasons, mostly because of our resources and our internal debt limits, but we simply can't prioritize more. This is all the more detrimental to a community when we have a climate adaptation plan that has identified Norfolk County as a very high risk compared to other years for flooding, which is directly associated with our high risk of delay in first responders, our high risk of power outages attributed to adverse wind and snow, ice storms, which is directly related to our high risk of contamination and flooding of drinking water systems, which pushes surface material into our water sources. Our high risk of supercharging and flooding of stormwater management is also listed. In 2023, we simply cannot allow this to occur, yet municipalities aren't equipped with financial resources to update our infrastructure. Our climate adaptation plan warns of the high risk of decreased agricultural output and productivity. This is attributed to development and increases to drought and temperature changes. Drought puts us into the very high risk on the greater demand for municipal water supply and depleted groundwater resources. While the list goes on, totaling 18 initiatives from moderate to very high risk, 13 of 18 are high or very high for Norfolk County. We simply cannot afford to fulfill our routine infrastructure upgrades, such as keeping our taps on, let alone switching our focus to climate change initiatives that we fundamentally agree with. This testimony doesn't allow time for a discussion on shoreline protection, greening our assets, or planning with sustainable housing initiatives in our planning department, despite the fact that we know our population will grow by 50% in the coming years. However, we respectfully submit our testimony and recommendations to the committee, and we would be happy to supply you with any additional information, including our studies, upon your request. And I have brought the lovely Sydney Claresy here with me today, our project lead at Norfolk County, to speak to any energy or facility needs that may suit the committee. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mayor Martin. Just a quick note, we did conduct a study on a particular aspect of shoreline erosion, and I invite you to peruse that at your time free. Next, we will have Ms. Aziz. Ms. Aziz, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you for the invitation to speak to this committee about adapting infrastructure to face climate change in Canada. My name is Lena Aziz. I am the Habitat Programs Director at Watershed Watch Salmon Society. We are a salmon conservation organization based in British Columbia, and I'm calling from my home in Port Coquitlam on unceded Coquitlam territory. I'm also representing the Indigenous-led Lower Fraser Floodplains Coalition. We are a group of organizations and experts with the shared goal of helping BC's flood recovery and management efforts achieve the best possible outcomes by addressing systemic challenges and improving flood planning for our region. The Fraser River is one of the world's greatest wild salmon rivers. Salmon are a keystone species and integral to the cultural security of Fraser First Nations, the local economy, and the very identity of British Columbians. The Lower Fraser, roughly from Hope to the Salish Sea, is heavily populated and developed with agriculture, industry, and homes, filling in the floodplain that is protected by about 600 kilometers of dikes, over 100 pump stations, and 500 floodgates. Many of these flood structures are either blocking side channels, tributaries, and sloughs that should be salmon habitat, or killing salmon outright. So, we are working to ensure salmon and their habitats are better considered in flood mitigation and adaptation strategies. A 2015 provincial dike assessment found that 90% of dikes do not meet current standards and are not well adapted for the changing climate, which is bringing us bigger and more frequent floods. We also have aging and undersized floodgates and pump stations. These deficiencies are putting our region at extreme risk of climate-induced high water events like the kind we experienced in November 2021. It has been estimated that the recovery cost of that single flooding event will top $5 billion. We need to invest in flood mitigation, and as noted in the National Adaptation Strategy, each dollar invested in mitigation and preparedness saves as much as $15 in disaster recovery. Yet, we also know from the Lower Fraser Diking Assessment that we need new approaches to managing flood risk because upgrading all the existing dikes was found to be prohibitively expensive. Fortunately, we aren't stuck with the flood management options designed in the last century, but we need to be proactive and thoughtful in moving forward with proven modern solutions. Together with Lower Fraser local governments and First Nations, the LFFC identified 5 principles for a Made in BC approach that incorporates the pillars of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction and commitments to the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples that the Government of Canada is a signatory to. These principles are reducing risk and adapting to climate change, advancing reconciliation, thriving salmon in coastal and freshwater ecosystems, supporting sustainable economic and resilient communities into the future, and ensuring everyone is part of the solution. Provincial ministers responsible for emergency management and the BC flood strategy have voiced their support for these principles. We ask that the federal government also support the principles as aligned with federal commitments to Sendai, legal obligations under UNDA, and salmon recovery. Essentially, infrastructure for a changing climate must be multi-beneficial. This means keeping our communities safe while also supporting salmon recovery and other values. This can be accomplished through integrated planning and sustained proactive funding. For example, natural defenses, also referred to as nature-based solutions, have to be ranked highly in funding programs such as the DMAF and DFAA, which make large infrastructure investments as part of disaster recovery. At present, DFAA requires building back to the same standards and encourages communities to rebuild in high-risk areas that might otherwise not be covered by private insurance because they can be confident of a government bailout. This is inherently counter to the concept of adaptation. We need modernized floodplain maps, identification of risk, and a focus on resilience and adaptation planning. Natural flood defenses can include making room for rivers to flood safely, restoration and protection of wetlands and floodplains, increased absorption capacity in upper watersheds, strategic relocations, and supporting farmers in floodplains to adapt their agricultural practices. There are many natural infrastructure and fish-friendly solutions that will keep our communities safe and build resilience into the ecosystem, allowing salmon and other species to thrive. These solutions all need to be supported by DMAF and DFAA and other federal infrastructure funding streams with big, bold, and creative investments. The Watershed Security Fund can also help, and we'd like to see federal matching funds to support watershed health, which in turn can directly benefit our built environment. In our region, DMAF has supported the Innovative Living Dike project in Boundary Bay. Projects like this should be the norm, not the novelty. In summary, adapting our infrastructure to be resilient to a changing climate in the Lower Fraser requires 2 key components: sustained funding for regional flood resilience plan based on the 5 principles, and funding and incentives for multi-beneficial, nature-based, and fish-friendly infrastructure solutions. This is essential for community and ecosystem health and safety and necessary to ensure that supply chain networks and communities in regions like the Lower Fraser are not subject to repeated disruptions. A principled strategic approach offers a way forward in a complex region like the Lower Fraser. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to questions.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ease. We'll begin our line of questioning today with Dr. Lewis. Dr. Lewis, the floor is yours. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for coming today. My first question is for Mayor Martin. Mayor, I want to thank you for your testimony and presentation today to the committee. I appreciate your leadership in Norfolk, and I appreciate the work that you're doing for our community. You mentioned a bit about the damages that have been caused by regular flooding and largely the infrastructure gap. Is there sufficient government attention and priority given to municipalities like Norfolk when it comes to the safety and climate-related concerns, which are having real impacts now and maybe not projected years in the future, but are having the impacts right now today?
Thank you for the question. In my opinion, no. Otherwise, we would be regularly applying into those funding streams, and we would have a plan to further adapt the level of flooding that we're seeing in our communities. And if I may just piggyback on that, the other issue is a lot of private property ownership is mixed in with the municipal lands, and so we can do our part if the funding becomes available. But what happens to those private landowners, and are they doing their part as well?
Thank you. And you also spoke about high risks and high risk areas that aren't being addressed and funded proactively. And I'm concerned, and I know that you are well aware of this situation about the orphaned gas wells that the government's not addressing. And that's a significant issue that is posing an ongoing health and safety environmental concern. It may not fit into the disaster mitigation and adaptation funding presently, but if left unresolved, there may be catastrophic damage from explosions and environmental leaks. Can you speak to that issue?
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I didn't have enough time to fit that into my testimony, but Ontario alone has 26,000 that we know of abandoned gas wells. That doesn't mean that all of them are leaking or erupting, but it does mean that we don't know when they're going to leak and erupt. Norfolk County is home to 2,600, with one leaking gas well right now in our community that has cost us over $1 million, and an all-hands-on-deck approach with all of our staff from our health unit to our operations and roads team trying to manage hydrogen sulfide and a leaking gas well. We've had to evacuate community members, and we're ill-equipped to handle this with finances and resources. So what I hear from our provincial partners is that the federal government additional funding to the provincial partners to make its way down to the municipalities would go a long way. And I think we're going to see this as a really systemic, deep-seated issue in all of Ontario. I can't speak outside of Ontario in the coming years. As we know, we've got 2,600 in Norfolk County alone, and one gas well with over $1 million. So a lot of health and safety risks. And our EMS team, they're not equipped to respond either. We don't have in-house monitoring to determine if it's a high-risk area and we need to be evacuating our residents. Is it something our fire department deals with? Is it something the health unit deals with? So big issue, and I think we're going to hear about it a lot in the coming years.
I'm also concerned about the federal programs and that they aren't sufficiently assessing the needs of small communities like Norfolk. And meanwhile, basic infrastructural needs are not being prioritized correctly. And I'm thinking of things just like as water infrastructure upgrades, which is essential and which the problems get exacerbated with flooding. Could you speak to that a moment?
Yes, thank you for your comments. I couldn't agree more. $390 million and growing every day just to upgrade our 5 wastewater and water treatment plants and try to amalgamate it into one facility that's state-of-the-art, that has high-end technology, that helps us if there's a flood. It elevates the systems. It preserves the quality and the quantity. I've put some pictures in our submissions for the members to review as well that are quite alarming, in fact. And in Norfolk County alone, we have one community with a full moratorium on development, as we were in a 2,500 cubic meter deficit of water daily. So when municipalities can't afford to upgrade their infrastructure that simply keeps the taps on in 2023, I just don't know how we get creative and bold and make investments that can help us create sustainable communities for years to come. So a lot of climate change initiatives are directly tied into the groundwater, the quality, the quantity, and the infrastructure that we pump with that water.
And in saying that, are there any specific changes that you believe that government could make to better prioritize the more equitable distribution of federal funding to smaller municipalities like Norfolk?
Yes, thank you. I skirted that first part of your question. Absolutely. Like I said, we were put into a basket where we're competing with the Greater Toronto Area, but we're massive. We're a small municipality, and we have the name county in our name, but it's more of a branding strategy than representative of what we are. So we need to be treated equally and given consideration into size. I think some of the provincial methods we're seeing are audits on our books to determine how much funding we have. Do we have money in the resources? What are your debt limits? Can you take on additional funding? And so if the federal government could review those types of things instead of simply gapping us together with other municipalities that have a same population size, I think it would go a long way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Martin. Next, we have Mr. Rogers, and before I turn the floor over to Mr. Rogers, on behalf of this committee and the 12 or so Canadians that are watching us on CPAC right now, I would like to wish you a happy 70th birthday in advance, my good man.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Appreciate that. Looking forward to it actually on Saturday with my family. We have some great witnesses here today, and I welcome all of you and thank you for your background and the information you're bringing to this committee. I think it's extremely important we hear from the municipal sector, the Insurance Bureau, and on and on. And any recommendations, of course, we truly appreciate. As a past mayor and member of the FCM for 4 years, as sat on the board, I truly understand, Mayor Martin, where you're coming from. I do know that FCM has put forward tremendous programs on behalf of municipalities across the country, big and small. And I think our government has responded really well in many of their programs they've announced, like the gas tax fund, for example, got doubled, and other programs in terms of infrastructures. There's been a tremendous amount of money being spent across the entire country. But of course, I realize the challenges that you have as a mayor, and I've been there, understand where you're coming from. There never seems to be enough money to deal with the issues. So thank you for your comments. Chief Patrick, you mentioned, I really particularly enjoyed your commentary about, and when you talked about extreme weather events and protecting future generations, investing in preventative measures, and you referenced, of course, Lytton Fire and floods in BC. So it seemed like that you had a couple other preventative measures you want to talk about, that or things that you'd like for us as a government to invest in and to support all towns across this country from wildfires and catastrophe. So, Chief, would you want to make a comment or two further?
Yes, thank you. I think what's really important here is that, let's use an example. The Lytton Weather Station recorded temperature at 49.6 degrees in June of 2021. But most of the regions, we'll call them non-official weather stations, were showing in excess of 50, with the highest at 55. So one of my recommendations is to create a new system of weather stations. If we're going to have a climate change adaptation strategy, we need site-specific data. We need to know your wind. We need to know your temperature. We need to know your precipitation. So we forecasted at Kanakabar a 6-degree change by 2050 in regional temperature. And that's what we're preparing for. Our only concern is it's happening sooner than we thought. So our 3 weather stations at Kanakabar, 18 kilometers south of Lytton, were recording in excess of 50. So we're going to adapt our infrastructure, rails, bridges, roads, water systems, wastewater. We need site-specific data. Give Canadians information, data. It's an old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If we're now using data that is not applicable, that is out of date, we're not going to come up with a proper plan.
Chief, I need to get to the Insurance Bureau people and for a couple of questions. So I really appreciate that, and that's extremely concerning when the numbers that you're referencing for temperatures. For the Insurance Bureau folks, perhaps Mr. Stewart, I had a meeting with some folks in my office on Tuesday morning, and we talked at length about the challenges that the Insurance Bureau people are facing in insurance companies and so on across the country. With the extreme wildfires happening in Nova Scotia now, 150 homes destroyed and so on and so on. So I wonder, do you have any suggestions about preventative measures that our government needs to take along with provincial and municipal governments to prevent future forest fires? Are there forest management practices that can be employed or things to mitigate floods and that kind of thing? So give us the benefit of your experience and what you've seen.
Thank you, MP Rogers, for the question. Yeah, we actually know what to do. The consultations around the National Adaptation Strategy surfaced, and this wasn't just IBC. This was IBC with FCM and Canadian Red Cross and Salvation Army, like a broad group of experts that are on the front lines, and came up with very explicit recommendations about what needs to be done to better protect. And it starts with infrastructure. That's probably the biggest thing is as Mayor Martin mentioned, these investments in resilient infrastructure that builds resilience for communities is one of the biggest things that could be done. But in addition to that, consumer awareness of Canadians of the risk that they face, elevating that risk. So the government committed to a flood portal, for instance, where any homeowner can type in their address and say, well, what's my risk? What can I do about it? That is so important. And it's something that we as insurers can then also point on policy renewal. We can say, here's your risk. We can point to that flood portal. And then at a community level, implementing fire smart measures, how you essentially, so yes, forest management practices are part of it, but at the community level, essentially making sure that, homes are built to fire smart standards so that you're not using cedar shake shingles, for instance, if you live in tinder dry forest, these sorts of things.
I could just comment. I remember when Fort McMurray had a major fire, and we had a gentleman come to our municipal sector and talk about how municipalities and communities and individuals actually invite the fire into their doors because they plant trees around their property and close to their homes. And in case of Nova Scotia, for example, prime example, there are large subdivisions with huge building lots with totally treed, and so once a fire starts, it's got tons of fuel, and there's very little chance you can save a house in those conditions. And, so going forward into the future, as the Insurance Bureau of Canada and other groups, we need strong suggestions and measures. So I would invite you to do a written presentation to this committee that we could use as a part of our suggestions to the federal government to take preventative measures going forward. That's the point I want to get at.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
Yep, and we invite you to submit that to the clerk, and we'd be happy to have it as part of our report. Thank you, Mr. Rogers, and thank you, Mr. Stewart. Prochainement, nous avons Mr. Barcel-Duval.
Mr. Barcelo-Duval, you have 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses with us today. I think it's an important study that affects everyone on the Quebec territory, but throughout Canada. And so I presume that we could have heard an infinite number of witnesses, so you are the best of the best. I'd like to begin by the Mayor of Saint-Antoine, Mr. Chalifou. Earlier, you were talking about the issue that you have that the ice bridge between Saint-Antoine and Saint-Denis-sur-Richelieu disappeared. And for the benefit of the members of the committee, at the last meeting, we received the member of Saint-Ours, and it's not the same ice bridge. It's another one. There are many different ice bridges. So, Mr. Chalifou, could you speak to the impact on your community of the fact that this ice bridge is no longer available in the winter? Financial decisions or other impacts on your lives? When we speak on an economic basis, we're talking about jobs. There are some companies where people no longer try to get a job on the other side of the river. There's a food company called Norterra, and vice versa. There are some very good jobs coming. And this is a pool of workers that no longer will have the opportunity to apply on either side of the river. It's too long if you have to do a detour, a 50-kilometer detour. Also, medically, we don't have a medical clinic on our side Saint-Antoine, Saint-Richelieu. In Saint-Denis, they do. So people no longer try to have a doctor's appointment on the other side if they have to do an extra 50 kilometers. For vulnerable people, it's more difficult for them to travel. And also for services, it has a huge impact. And for fire services, police services, there are partnerships. And so we have to be increasingly prepared because of climate change. It will be even more important to work with our fire services. So if there's a major event, it would be useful for both communities to combine their resources. Either side might need the fire services or the fire prevention staff on either side, and now we're not able to have these joint projects. Thank you. During the last meeting, we had the mayor of Saint-Ours who spoke to us to the fact that they would have liked to see the Saint-Ours locks to be used or used by the municipalities to allow to have a year-long connection by extending the locks, and that way there would be a bridge allowing to cross. This had been looked at in the past but was never completed. In Saint-Antoine, would this be something that you would foresee as being positive? And what would be the impact on your community? It would be positive. It would reduce our transportation time between Saint-Antoine and Saint-Denis. It would cut our 50 kilometers by half. It's not optimal, but there are solutions that could be year-long. We are really central between both bridges from Sorel. We are central, but with Saint-Ours, there's already part of the infrastructure that's there, so we're talking about extending it. On our side, I think that boats could be better adapted. You could have systems allowing for year-long transportation, but right now the operator doesn't want to adventure into these waters, and we need help in order to be able to go forward at Saint-Antoine. 2 minutes? Okay. Another question for you, and it has to do with the water level. Each spring, the water level goes up because of the melting of the snow, and we have the impression that the water levels are higher each year, and there's a management that's done by the federal government through the locks at Saint-Jean, Chambly, Saint-Ours. So I'd like to know, what is the quality of communication that you have with the staff with regards to water management and maritime travel? We have very little communication. It's very difficult to have communication. And I'd like to specify that with climate change, there's a lot of erosion because the system that controls the water level. In the past, the ice arrived in December and then left. But now we have a freeze-thaw cycle, so you can have 3 or 4 freeze-thaw cycles, and so this erodes the riverbanks. So this winter, we had times without any ice during a month or 2. And so also wildlife is affected, but really we're talking about the erosion here. We have the erosion 4 or 5 times a year rather than once. So it's very difficult. Thank you, Mr. Lemaire. Mr. Barcelo-Duval.
We have Ms. Zerillo. Ms. Zerillo, the floor is yours. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to focus on water. I've heard a lot about water, around management of water, whether it's flood, whether it's drinkable water, whether it's water for agriculture. And then even today, Mayor Martin introduced, how much is there capacity, enough water. So today is BC Wild Salmon Day, so I am going to go ahead and initially ask my questions to Ms. Aziz just around the management of water. And you mentioned the Water Resiliency Fund or the Water Security Fund for the BC. The government has brought $100 million to the table, and a matching fund would be beneficial from the federal government. Can you expand a little bit on how that could help in the management and the protection of water?
Yes, and thank you very much for your question, MP Zerillo. The BC Watershed Security Fund aims to support local communities make decisions that make sense for them the best. In that way, the $100 million really does not go very far. We definitely need to see more money invested in watershed security of all kinds. And that really is based on values that communities identify as important. For example, with our floodplain coalition, the Lower Fraser Floodplain Coalition, we are a hyper-local group focused in the Lower Fraser region. And we need funds to support our work in bringing communities together, having conversations, convening forums, and building good relationships and trust. And through that, we would be able to identify important values that will support building resilience in this region. That's an incredibly complex region. So the current commitments towards the Watershed Security Fund do not support this kind of work. For example, another example, in the community that I live in, Port Coquitlam, a fish-friendly pump station is looking to cost about $14 million to protect upstream industry and homes and allow salmon to move through. Port Coquitlam has applied to DMAF numerous times, to Disaster Mitigation Adaptation Fund, and are not able to access that money. Perhaps through watershed security, which would include the values of fish and fish habitat, they would be able to upgrade this very important infrastructure to protect their communities and ensure that salmon are able to move through. So that's from a very fish-focused and floodplain-specific perspective, but watershed security really does apply to communities up and down a watershed, and really does allow them to focus on the values that they know need to be addressed within their communities.
Thank you so much. And I think even about the hydro dam that is in up in Coquitlam there, and the hydro dam, only when those initial contracts were signed, the hydro dam was only allowing a certain capacity of water to be used amongst community. And I know a couple of years ago when there was drought, there was additional charges to the community because they needed to release more water from the hydro dam. But I also know those hydro dams affected fish and salmon habitat being able to come home. So I wonder if you've got any comments about industry and the legacy contracts with industry that are now not keeping pace with the growing density that's happening in our community.
Well, with regards to the Coquitlam, the dam in Coquitlam on the Coquitlam River, Watershed Watch is part of the Coquitlam River Watershed Roundtable, working with industry in our watershed to try to ensure that all values are looked at in an equal way and balanced, and the needs are balanced, and the demands on that waterway on that reservoir are balanced. So, sorry, I don't think I'm fully able to answer your question.
Actually, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go to. I'm going to move on to Chief Mitchell. I just wanted to ask a little bit about the Indigenous knowledge, the Indigenous lens, and how important it is for the partnerships that we need to build across government and community to have the Indigenous knowledge there, and even around the water. If you've got some comments you'd like to share for part of the study.
Yes, thank you. My first thing could be controversial. The collective conscious knowledge that my community has and my nation has is getting out of date. We're not adapting to these changing extreme weather events. But what's important, though, is you bring to the table 8,000 years of knowing. As I referenced, you complement it with the weather stations. But we've also started gauging. We've got water gauging stations on all 7 of the creeks that are here, because water is necessary for ecosystems health, for drinking, for irrigation, for fire protection, for energy production, but most importantly, sharing. So from a water perspective, the issue that's facing my region and potentially Canada isn't water quantity. It's water storage with timed release for those 6 purposes. So I think it's integral that we understand where water is going to be running out. During June of 2021, groundwater wells were also depleted. It wasn't just surface streams, it's groundwater as well. So it's very, very important that water, as one of the foundations of life, be truly invested in.
Just going to close out. I've got about 20 seconds left with the Insurance Bureau of Canada. There was a mention around enhancing the CIB to get that $2 billion in, but then to get additional from partners. And partners is something I'm very interested in exploring, and I just wonder what kind of partnerships you believe would be beneficial in the CIB with the CIB?
So very quickly, Canadian Climate Institute just released a report in collaboration with Addenda Capital, which is the investment arm of Cooperators Insurance, and it laid out a number of ways in which you can attract private sector capital into in basically resilient infrastructure without increasing debt load on municipalities. And so there's an active conversation with CIB underway right now, and we will send that report into the committee.
Thank you very much to you both. Next, we have Mr. Muse. Mr. Muse, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses here for a great discussion so far. We've been blessed in this study to have quite a number of witnesses with insight. Before I turn to you for questions, Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce a motion which has been provided to the clerk, and I understand it's in both official languages and will be circulated, obviously, for consideration next meeting. And that is that pursuant to Standing Order 81.5, the committee undertake a study on the supplementary Estimates A 2023-24, that the Minister of Transport and Transport Canada's Chief Financial Officer and the Minister of Infrastructure and Infrastructure Canada's Chief Financial Officer each be invited to appear for no fewer than 2 hours, and that these two meetings take place as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muse. So the motion is now tabled. You can proceed with the line of questioning.
Great, thank you. So let me ask questions of first of Mr. Stewart and Ms. Roll, and I know that Mr. Rogers, who doesn't look, by the way, a day over 50, has given you an invitation. So happy birthday, forthcoming on the weekend. Has given you an invitation to provide a written submission. So if you can't answer this question, in full in the few minutes here, I'd certainly invite you to include that in the written submission. And that is the committee that you chaired with regard to disaster resiliency plans. Did you look at other jurisdictions, what they have done, and are there examples that we can learn from elsewhere?
Yes, thank you for the question. So Canada is in a very interesting position in that national adaptation strategies have been tabled by countries around the world. It's actually now a UN requirement. And there's certain jurisdictions like New Zealand and Britain who have done an excellent job of it. They essentially set up these strategies to be tabled every 5 years. They're reviewed in advance by doing a risk assessment about, okay, how is the country changing, as a result of climate change? How is the risk profile evolving? And then developing a suite of mechanisms, programming, et cetera, in order to respond to that risk in an iterative manner. And setting targets is absolutely essential. So what gets measured is what gets done. And so being able to, and New Zealand is probably the one that's the furthest ahead on this, being able to essentially say, we're going to reduce the risk to wildfire by this much using these indicators, and then measuring how you've gotten there. In private sector business, setting targets is sort of rote. It's what we do, and we need that level of rigor if we're going to realistically reduce risk in a systemic way across this country, and so that committee came up with a suite of targets that we submitted into the government.
And I like this discussion about planning and pre-planning, and this builds on some of the testimony from last meeting as well. And so I know, Mr. Dade, you talked about that. I come from a private sector background as well, where you have of KPIs and a plan and goals and targets and milestones. And so maybe if you want to amplify, you gave the example of transportation infrastructure and how we've fallen from 10th to 32nd. And so and I think you had seven steps that you were going to suggest. So maybe you can elaborate a bit more on that on the context of planning.
Well, specifically with I won't elaborate on the fall. We have a full report out on that. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it available au Français aussi, so we didn't submit it to the committee, but it's available online. In terms of planning, as the insurance company mentioned, the incorporation of analysis of risk and measures to mitigate risk are parts of national plans, not just in New Zealand and the UK. They have separate plans, as you mentioned, but it's also part of their national infrastructure planning. Infrastructure Australia, who's the model we're looking at for Canada, incorporates this in their national infrastructure planning. This gives you an enforcement lens for your targets and your reductions. You don't have to then set the targets and idiosyncratically go out and search for projects to which to try and apply them. If you have a long-term national pipeline of projects and criteria, those projects, your most important projects, for the long term are vetted through these criteria. So it gives you a focus to be able to enforce and have greater effectiveness for the measures. And it's something that we've been lacking, that our competitors have, that we've been lacking. And it's also why we've fallen in the rankings. It's not one flood, it's not one strike. It's the fact that countries don't think we have this coherent, comprehensive view, that we don't do planning.
Thank you, Mr.
We
Dade.
don't have our act together.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Mr. Muse. Next, we have Ms. O'Connell. Ms. O'Connell, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all the witnesses for being here today. Through the course of this study, I'll just say it's incredibly refreshing that in this forum, there seems to be absolutely no debate that climate change is real, that the impacts are significant, and the impacts cost Canadians dearly, not only financially, but in your communities across this country. I mean, it's really disheartening that if we just walk across the street, even just this week, we've heard time over time during this study the very real human impacts. Meanwhile, just across the street, we still are hearing some members claim that these incidents are just stupid guilt trips. And just yesterday, and in dealing with the issue of not only climate change and infrastructure mitigation, the importance of addressing climate change and the impacts first are crucial, but then how to mitigate our infrastructure and our communities to adapt for what is inevitable, unfortunately. And so what I've consistently heard across the board from various spectrums of witnesses is that all tools in the toolbox need to be on the table, that there can't just be disaster mitigation funding. There can't just be, federal funding. It has to be all orders of government. It has to be private sector, public sector, research. Municipalities, of course, are on the front lines. And so to the Insurance Bureau of Canada, I appreciated your comments about the Canada Infrastructure Bank, because this is just one tool, another tool in the toolbox that we've seen are doing big projects and dealing with emissions, reductions, et cetera. And just yesterday, Mr. Poilievre said he would cancel the Infrastructure Bank. That's one of the first things he would do. That was a $9.7 billion federal investment that has actually attracted $27 billion of overall infrastructure funding. So that would either mean, if that was canceled, that the taxpayers would have to fund $27 billion just to be equivalent. Meanwhile, you've asked for an increase in that. Or it would be removing other federal funding that to our mayors and the municipalities that are here are saying we need more of this funding for municipalities because budgets can't handle it. So to the Insurance Bureau of Canada, can you speak to why the private sector investment in dealing with climate change adaptation is crucial? And in one of your answers recently, you talked about to also help keep the pressure off municipalities. Can you elaborate on why this tool in the toolbox is going to be crucial in our dealing with our infrastructure gaps?
Thank you for the question, MP McConnell. The Canada Infrastructure Bank has terrific promise on the adaptation side. Look, the scale of the problem, as you've heard from witnesses, is far too great for any level of government to address alone. The private sector should be at the table. The private sector should be viewing this as an investment opportunity, and we should be able to crowd private capital into these projects. And we have companies with investment arms that are actively looking for projects right now. This isn't hypothetical, and you need some sort of mechanism or broker to blend that capital, right, and to come up with the term sheets. What the infrastructure bank does is it assumes risk at the front end and at the back end and makes it easier to basically for private sector capital to flow into these deals, and that mechanism, in our view, is very, very important if we're going to meet this challenge together. So, we actually hold the Canada Infrastructure Bank. We know it's taken a bit to get going. It's a very ambitious enterprise, but it's a necessary vehicle to make sure that private sector is also at the table.
And do you think municipalities across the country, have you heard anyone that would say that they could make up across the board the $27 billion of the investments in these projects? Has any municipality put up their hand and said, we have so much funding, we can't wait to make more investments?
No, of course not.
Thank you. I don't know that I have much more time, but to our Mayor Martin, you mentioned about the gapping. I just want to be clear, the ISIP program was actually prioritized by the provincial government, and that's where I believe you're referring to the, gapping of municipalities, but our programming of application-based, there is no, it's based on merit of project and not in combination of where you're located or size of municipality.
I would just suggest if there was any flow-through funding to the province, that maybe a partnership on how it's sent down to us. But yes, I understand. Thank you.
I share those frustrations of how they've distributed those monies, and I will be sure to raise that.
Thank you very much, Ms. O'Connell. Prochainement, nous avons M. Barcelo-Duval. À vous la parole. Vous avez...
Mr. Barcelo-Duval, 2.5 minutes. Thank you. I'm going to continue with Mr. Chalifou from Saint-Antoine. Today, you came to speak to us about the issue, the fact that before you had an ice bridge in the winter, now you don't, and it becomes increasingly difficult to cross. This is your situation, and I'm convinced that you're not the only ones in Quebec or in Canada, I imagine, to have this kind of situation. I imagine there are ice bridges elsewhere in Quebec and in Canada who are also threatened by climate change. And in that context, I've oftentimes, before this committee, pleaded for the fact that some of my colleagues have had say, well, I don't like it when jurisdictions are trampled upon, but in this case, we know that navigable waterways are a federal jurisdiction, so a role should be played by the federal government here to help communities that had infrastructure in the past and today that they can no longer use. It is disappearing because of climate change. So I'd like to know how you would foresee the role of the federal government to support you in this transition so that, once again, you're able to have links. I imagine that everyone thinks that it's necessary to connect these communities. It's going to take federal funding to help us with regards to permits, with regards to these private operators. We have no say with regards to these ferries that have existed for years. And as a municipality, these cable ferries, and we should be able to have our say. But if they don't want to participate, it's an issue. We should have our word to say. And I'm trying to figure out a way. Well, the new way of seeing this would be when the ice bridge was there, it's as if you take both sides of the river and they're stuck together and it creates one large community. So this is lost, and it's not just economic ties, but there are social ties. Saint-Antoine and Saint-Denis have always worked jointly for centuries, really. Thank you.
We have Ms. Cirillo. Ms. Cirillo, the floor is yours. You have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask Mayor Martin and then back to the Insurance Bureau. So this is just to talk about the abandoned wells a little bit. So I'm interested to know if you believe that industry needs to be accountable today for the contaminations and negative impacts that were not considered 50 years ago and how that would look.
Thank you for the question. The answer is yes. However, in our experience, we have a very difficult time tracking down those private landowners. Those businesses have closed, they've gone bankrupt. The members who were associated with that business have passed, and now that is when we see the deterioration of the infrastructure that occurred in the capping of the well. So it's not for lack of trying. The answer is yes, but I believe it's difficult to do.
Okay, and can you just give this committee a little bit of an idea of that challenge and if the federal government is helping in any way to find out who those landowners are and to get some accountability and assistance?
To my knowledge, the federal participation currently on gas wells is limited, to my knowledge. We have seen provincial funding come through, but I know that it's not enough, and I know that it's not sustainable. And it's a knee-jerk reaction to a problem. It's not a proactive approach to how we're going to handle them in the future and our planning for the next stages. We know in Wheatley, Ontario, there was a rather large explosion in a downtown core urban center with regards to a gas well, and as well in Norfolk County. And it's reactive. It is trying to monitor it and cap it and then move on to the next one. So not very well versed in the exact role on the federal level at this point in time, but to my understanding, there isn't funding coming home to the provincial level to be distributed to municipalities.
Okay, so that is a risk. Okay, I'm just going to ask the same question to the Insurance Bureau. Just around whether or not industry needs to be accountable for that contamination, because again, 50 years ago, this wasn't on the table, and how would that look?
So it's not an area that we've spent a lot of time on. It's been an issue, as I understand it, since the 1990s. It's been a known issue in Ontario that the government has had to grapple with. The reality is that these are unfunded liabilities at the end of the day, and somehow those should be addressed at the outset through bonds or whatever when these companies are set up. Now that they're gone, I don't know how. I don't know exactly how they could be tackled, but yeah, ideally, going forward, this sort of situation shouldn't be permitted to exist.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cirillo, and thank you, Mr. Stewart. Next, we have Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you all the witnesses this morning. The first question through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Dade. So I love the fact that you're talking about long-term planning. You had mentioned about 10 to 30-year forward planning. I would suggest that's probably not enough. I think we need further planning than that. In a previous life, I worked with a company that fixed sewers without digging them up, so-called cured-in-place pipe. Ironically, we did a lot of work in Haldeman, Norfolk. As a matter of fact, we fixed the manholes at your local landfill. So I'm very acutely aware. The reason I bring that up, Mr. Dade, about this planning, and by the way, I don't own the company anymore. I have no interest there. So there is zero interest, or conflict of interest, I should say. But I do bring it up because it's important to suggest about saving money and stretching municipal dollars further. And so this type of technology costs 20 to 25 cents the cost of original open cut dig and replace. And so I'm just curious, what other industries, sir, are you looking at for the 10 to 30-year plan, and how can the government help be a conduit, pardon the pun, to ensure that municipalities are getting great opportunities to save money to stretch those tax dollars further?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank the honourable member from Essex for the question. In terms of the 10 to taking the bits in order, in terms of 10 to 30 years, what the best practice shows internationally is this is what our competitors, this is what everyone who has, this is the range that's used, Infrastructure Australia, UK Infrastructure Commission, Malaysia, New Zealand, etc. So this is the range that works for transportation infrastructure. We're talking about the assets and systems that move goods, people, factors of production in and out of the country. So we really haven't looked beyond this. We've kept our focus to the infrastructure that earns 2/3 of our living in this country, transportation infrastructure. But this does benefit municipalities. If you have long-term planning for this type of infrastructure, municipalities can adjust investment attraction based on infrastructure that will be coming online. Their needs to meet the growth in demand, the growth in production, can be tailored and factored into this. One of the other elements of the plan,
just very quickly, Mr. Dade, please.
Infrastructure Australia provides assistance to municipalities to be able to participate in national planning. This is something that the Canada Infrastructure Bank was originally potentially envisioned to do, but it's a half of the bank's mandate that hasn't been fulfilled and hasn't been picked up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dade. I appreciate that. I don't have a question for you, Mr. Stewart, but I do want to recognize and say thank you very much for recognizing the firefighters. As a firefighter myself for 7.5 years, it means a lot that you would recognize them. I have about a minute and 40 seconds left to you, Madam Mayor Martin. So your area is very, very similar to Essex, incredibly similar to Essex. When we talk about food production, greenhouse capital of Canada, we talk about flooding. We have the flooding issues. We talk about you being a county, Essex County, wineries. By the way, ours is better than yours. And ironically, both of your MPs' last name are Lewis. So my question for you is, with regard to specifically to flooding, by the way, as well, just next door to mine, Chatham-Kent-Leamington, that explosion is obviously in Wheatley is where that gas was from. So it very much hits home. I'm almost feel as though I'm home today and listening to you, Madam Mayor. Do you work closely with your conservation authorities? So obviously we have the Essex Region Conservation Authority. I do understand to be true you have a conservation authority. And so what can the federal government do to work with those conservation authorities closer? And I realize that they're legislated provincially, but I think we may be walking past an opportunity. Thoughts?
Thank you for the question. Yes, Long Point Region Conservation Authority is excellent with, as we heard from one of the other speakers, data, with presenting us with information, with presenting the community with warnings, high water risk, high flood risk, high winds. So there's a lot of ongoing communications that happen between the Conservation Authority and the municipalities. If it, can plug the opportunity. It's resources. We know that the water's coming. We know that the wind is coming. We know that we're going to see power outages. And we don't have the resources in place to protect the water treatment plant when the power goes out, to enforce build up some enforcements to protect our community, our roads, our small businesses from the flooding. And we certainly don't have the money for the shoreline erosion. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mayor Martin, and thank you, Mr. Lewis. Next, we have Mr. Badaway. Mr. Badaway, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do want to concentrate on the business of government and a whole government approach, recognizing, of course, this is a fluid conversation. And I guess I'm going to direct most of my attention to the mayor with respect to the how to the what. We all understand what the what is. It's pretty consistent today. But how does the federal government be a better partner with our local communities and stakeholders to create that resiliency that we're speaking about through leveraging financing that mitigates the financial burden on property taxpayers? I recognize your budget, for example, this year alone, 11.5% increase in your water wastewater budget, 9.6% operating increase in your levy, and blended at an 8% increase. You're looking at about $38 million between now and 2032. It's quite heavy, so I get it. But how do we mitigate that in terms of taking that burden off the property taxpayers and, of course, the water bills, in particular to partner under a disciplined approach that has been established in Ontario? And I see that you're disciplined PSAB as well as finance asset management plans are very noticeable. Shoreline protection, asset management, adaptability, natural infrastructure, maintenance, investments, etc. From the one side, from the other side, we have carbon pricing, what they call the carbon tax, revenues coming into you at 10% of overall what's being collected throughout the country. Canada Community Building Fund, which is the former gas tax fund, the NTCF, Green Building Fund, The Great Lakes St. Lawrence announcement that was made this year at $420 million, partly for shoreline protection and of course, resilience, and additional funding envelopes. So 2 questions, and this is the how to the what. Would it be advantageous to consolidate or repurpose some of these funding envelopes programs under one program, such as a CIP program, which I'm sure you're very aware of, that concentrates on climate resiliency to satisfy capacity that you speak about, or under the existing programs, focus on climate resilience as a scoring matrix priority when applications are being submitted? Question 1. I'm going to get my second question out, the rest of the time is yours. How do you envision a whole government approach at the federal level and including all levels of government, integrating, as you mentioned, capital planning to ensure strategic investments, as was mentioned at the end of the table, worst first, toward infrastructure resiliency? Every investment affects each department due to financial pressures on both resiliency and growth-related costs. Housing, affected by infrastructure, affected by finance, affected by heritage, whole of government, all levels of government. And an example of this is what you work with. You have different departments, planning, operations, so on and so forth, HR, emergency. With that, how do we, at this level, create that resiliency, create that partnership, create that flow, that fluidity within our government, but also including all levels of government? Floor is yours.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to go really high level, and then I might pass it over to Sydney, who's you're more in her wheelhouse. Your first question, how does the federal government help? Again, it's funding, and I know we've beaten that to death. It's maybe taking a look at a comprehensive insurance plan and taking an active approach in that instead of leaving it with the provincial level. Insurance is so high on a good day, let alone all of these climate factors that we're seeing. So assistance through insurance. And then your second question, high level answer, it's a multi-jurisdictional approach. If we're only helping Norfolk County and Haldimand County doesn't opt in or Essex County doesn't opt in, what are we going to do? So it's a multi-jurisdictional approach. But all of those funding sources, that's Sydney's wheelhouse. So if I can preserve my time and pass it over, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the questions. In regards to the Norfolk County Climate Change Adaptation Plan, 13 of the 18 climate risks that were identified through the vulnerability assessment were very high or high risk. And of that, 8 of the 13 were involved our water, wastewater infrastructure, water quality, which, has a trickle-down effect on several facets of the community. But in terms of funding, a lot of the funding that we're seeing today is looking for shovel-ready projects. But to be shovel-ready when you want to, even upgrade your water, wastewater infrastructure or be resilient and adapt that infrastructure to face climate change, the issue is that it's not always shovel-ready. When you're a small municipality, it's hard to justify continued spending on in-depth studies. I would say that's definitely a big solution.
One plan, one funding stream. Comments on consolidating funding streams?
To be honest, I don't have a preferred option for that, just from my personal opinion. I know that I have applied to the GICB funding program for facilities, and that was basically based on a dollar amount per greenhouse gas emissions reduction. Obviously, that's more mitigation. So potentially the climate risk index.
If I can just throw this out there, Mr. Chairman, because I know I'm at a limit, but working with the FCM, one of the things that we're trying to do as well is consolidate a lot of that opinion in terms of the funding packages and the envelopes, whether it be building fund, whether it be green fund, and it's a fluid conversation. And with that comes the priorities. But you guys all of you make great points, and I want to thank you for that.
And if I may, FCM typically opens up loan funding envelopes, and our debt limits are extremely high. In the next 25 years, we'll be over the 25% provincial allocation. In the next 4 years, we will be at our 15% internal debt limit. So the loans aren't always applicable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Badaway, and thank you, Mayor Martin.
Into the others.
Okay, we'll move on to our next line of questioning, and we'll give the floor over to Dr. Lewis. Dr. Lewis, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm just going to make a statement of fact and ask if Mayor Martin agrees with this. It's just touching back on the orphan wells. I'm sure you're aware, Mayor Martin, that Alberta was given $220 million last year for abandoned wells reclamation. Many environmentalists would ask the question, and the question was asked today about oil companies and them being responsible for the externalities and paying the cost of the externalities that they caused. And that is also associated with capping the wells. And they often cite Alberta and Saskatchewan, but Norfolk County and Ontario in general is very different. Would you agree that the orphan well situation, because our oil and gas industry existed over 100 years ago, it is not a recent industry? That industries just were developing, and it existed long before the oil extracting industry of the West. So many of these wells are now on private land, and these homeowners were never a part of the industry, and yet they are left with the cost of orphaned. They're not abandoned wells, they're orphaned wells. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, thank you for the question. I would agree with that statement. And when I answered earlier about payment and dissolved companies and so on, I was referencing the private specific wells, not giving consideration to a broader industry at large. But you raise an excellent point. We see many farms that have used these wells to heat their homes and work on various initiatives across the farm. And now these private landowners have these wells, and I think it's two separate categories. I think there's two separate types of wells what we're looking at, but my answer previous was not to the larger, broader industry. It was to the specific individuals that played a role in capping or not capping before moving on.
My next question is for Mr. Dade. Dade?
Dade au français, Dade,
Oui,
Dade au anglais.
Merci. Canada doesn't have a national trade infrastructure plan, and you talked about this. And is Canada an outlier in this situation, not having a national infrastructure plan in place when you look at other, in comparison to other nations?
Correct. The European auditors, EU auditors, did a study to benchmark performance of transportation infrastructure planning in the EU. Of the countries they studied, and there were 2 Canadian academics who took part in the study, of the countries they surveyed, Canada was the only one that didn't have permanent, long-term, national infrastructure planning. And we did stand out like a sore thumb. When Prime Minister Harper went to the G20 at Melbourne, the Australians had Infrastructure Australia and infrastructure planning on the table. And we learned then, as everyone went around the table, it dawned on the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister, that Canada stood out.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from Mr. Stewart and Ms. Roll a little bit more about you spoke about the interconnectivity of both government funding from the infrastructure and also private funding, and how important the private initiatives are. I'd like to hear more about what role you think that they play in future mitigation and adaptation initiatives with respect to planning into the future, so that we're not just dealing with situations and catastrophes as they happen.
Thank you, MP Lewis. I'm actually going to focus on the National Flood Insurance Program as a unifier. So what insurance does is it prices risk. And right now, our system is we've got 10% of the population exposed to high flood risk, and they rely on government bailouts, which is essentially free insurance. So the incentives are all wrong. Once that National Flood Insurance Program is set up, and it's being designed so that it can be expanded to other perils if needed, from wildfire to earthquake. Once that's set up, then you can put the incentive system in place by saying, okay, now if communities invest in infrastructure that reduces the risk, their constituents will pay less in terms of premiums. And if homeowners take measures to protect themselves, you can also build those incentives in, such as we do with house fire right now. When you're interviewed on your insurance policy, if you've got a fire extinguisher or you live near a fire station. So it's about setting the whole framework from where we are now, which is basically a system of perverse incentives, to a system of positive feedback and beneficial incentives. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart, and thank you, Dr. Lewis. Next, we'll go to Mr. Chahal. Mr. Chahal, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for joining us today. I represent Northeast Calgary, Calgary Skyview. The city of Calgary's experienced some real major climate events, 2013 floods. We've seen 2 hailstorms, and the last one in 2020 did up to $1.5 billion of damage in my Northeast Calgary communities. Flooding on Deerfoot Trail and our roadways, but homes, 35,000 homes damaged and 35,000 vehicles. Now, my questions, and I'll start with the Insurance Bureau, and I'm a former city councillor. We had asked the Conservative provincial government for support for our communities. In 2013, we saw a response. We saw support for the floods. We saw no support when our council asked the provincial government for support, exactly to the points you've made today on supporting communities by being able to bring resilient roofing forward so people could build back better, build more resilient homes and communities to reduce those insurance premiums. No support. Nobody showed up. Different approaches to different storms. We have other issues as well when it comes to a broken insurance system. Now, my question to you to start with, and I wish there was an insurance company here to answer some of these questions. We had a high volume of claims. We had an ill-prepared insurance industry to deal with those claims, particularly in newcomer communities. Has the insurance industry learned from that past example, and have they improved their practices to ensure that folks who face these challenges are better served in language potentially, but there are on-the-ground supports to help them get through that process?
So it's a very important question, and frankly, it's a difficult one to answer. I'd say we're still learning as an industry. That event that you referenced, the $1.5 billion in losses, that was 100,000 claims that resulted, far more claims that came from Fort McMurray. 100,000 claims from a 20-minute event. We were overwhelmed. We just simply don't have the appraisers. We don't have, we don't keep that many people on standby to be able to deal with an event of that magnitude. And it's continued. Post-pandemic, private sector across the board is dealing with labor issues, right? How do we get staff and retain staff? And so it's frankly still an issue that we grapple with, especially when events happen in Eastern Canada, because most of our adjusters are out there in Western Canada, because that's where the bulk of the events are. And so we've run into it. We do run into it. We've run into it with the tornadoes that happened in Ottawa, and we're still running into it in events across the country. We're trying to do better. We're absolutely trying to do better. It's on our radar. CEOs talked about at our last board meeting, we need to do better. But the scale of these events is a challenge for everyone.
I'm going to ask you a few more questions, and I'm going to ask you one about your recommendation. But before I go there, do you think the insurance system in Alberta is broken? And do you believe there's discriminatory geographic practices that are occurring? And I'll give you an example. A resident of mine, a constituent of mine who live in my constituency in Northeast Calgary, and I've run examples of this myself. I picked 2 postal codes. Northeast Calgary, $2,218. Southwest Calgary, $1,500 for the same coverage on a vehicle. Now, how does that happen? My community, working class, newcomer communities, paying the bills just to get by, working multiple jobs, but are getting hosed when it comes to insurance. How does that happen? And I say discriminatory geographic practices, but through the underwriting practices, I would say, is there discriminatory practices to newcomers in this country when it comes to underwriting?
I don't believe there's any discriminatory practices when it comes to underwriting. Essentially what happens is underwriters will take a look at risk, and geographic factors do play in. It happens on property, and it happens on auto as well. Unfortunately, we're facing an absolute epidemic of auto theft in this country, and Alberta is the biggest part of the problem. From a, it is and we're working with the RCMP and Canadian Border Services to try to address this. But the losses have escalated so rapidly that we're just trying to figure out how to come to grips with it. And that's part of the
It's also in Brampton with an issue with the same disparity, I guess. And I know my time's running out, I think. Is there a role for the federal government to intervene to make sure that this doesn't happen when the provincial government absolutely has taken no action to reduce rates or cap rates? And so folks in my constituency in other parts of the country, like in Brampton, who are paying way more, aren't unfairly charged.
15-second response, please. Thank you.
The insurance industry is regulated from a provincial level when it comes to its insurance market. So it is a provincial regulatory issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chahal, and thank you, Mr. Stewart. I'm realizing that my powers of chair are dwindling as the days and weeks go by. Mr. Barcelo-Duval, à vous la parole.
Mr. Barcelo-Duval. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In their opening statements, and afterwards, I heard a lot of witnesses speak to the importance of infrastructure, natural infrastructure, and I think that most people don't have a tendency to have a natural reflex to talk about natural infrastructure, and that it does play a huge role in the attenuation of climate change and the impacts on our communities. A few years ago, the Canadian government, when the pipeline was acquired, the pipeline that crosses BC, it was a controversial decision because we know that the consumption of oil increases climate change. But at the time, they had said that they would plant 2 billion trees. I just calculated something, and if we calculated 2 billion trees divided by 338 ridings, it would be 6 million trees per riding. And that's a lot of trees. And I was wondering, for example, in riverside communities such as yourself, Mrs. Martin in Norfolk, or Mr. Mr. Chalifou in Saint-Antoine-sur-Richelieu, would a policy like that of a massive planting of trees or things that have already been promised, could that benefit if there was a will to use those trees, to really use them, but also to plant them in your community so that you could use them efficiently? Mrs. Martin first, and then Mr. Chalifou if there's time.
Thank you for the question. I love trees. Norfolk County loves trees. We'd take the trees. But we have 25% tree lot coverage already, and we struggle to preserve what we have due to high development booms, maintenance requirements, resources to plant the trees, water the trees, check on the trees. So I'd never say no to trees. We'd find a spot to put them, but I think it's such a bigger issue. I'd rather have money for water. But thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Chalifou.
Thank you, Mr. Chalifou. It's not just a question of having trees that will help the banks of the river or to allow for more resilience in case of flooding. It's not just for the river, but all the waterways that would have to be looked at. We have room for projects. It's just that we don't have the financial means. And of course, a revitalization is important. Also, all these agricultural waterways that bring a very large flux of water, the flow of water has increased. If we have measures to attenuate the water flow, that would be more useful. Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Cirillo. Ms. Cirillo, the floor is yours. You have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to go back to Chief Mitchell, please. I wanted to talk a little bit about this ounce of prevention equals a pound of cure. And certainly it's a very unfortunate situation in Lytton, and I know that you saw that firsthand. So as we think about modernizing and more resilient infrastructure, I wonder if you could just share with us around utilities
and just your personal firsthand experiences of what we need to do better in Canada in regards to infrastructure. That question was for you.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Energy production is critically important because we need to power our infrastructure. So I've been advocating for smaller scale diversification of renewable energy throughout British Columbia and Canada, so that when our large grids go down, we don't have to go without. Our water systems need energy, our wastewater systems, our food production, our homes need energy. So it's critical then through this partnership, through the Indigenous governments, municipal, regional, provincial, and federal, 5 governments, pool our resources. And those resources, people, time, technology, and money, also needs information. So from a pure energy perspective, we do need resilient and sustainable and affordable energy.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to go to the Insurance Bureau for my last question. And again, it just relates to utilities. And I know in my riding of Coquitlam, we have a lot of greenfield that the development community does not want to invest in underground electricity. And so this faces, this is an issue. So I just wondered if the Insurance Bureau had any thoughts around how we have more resilient utilities that lower the risk. I'm going to talk about homeowners and residential, for homeowners and residential.
Maybe. There are some things that can be done on the level of infrastructure, not just power infrastructure. I think we need to think about resiliency, not just for existing infrastructure, but planning to make future infrastructure resilient. We have a problem with our existing infrastructure when it comes to remediation, but we need to plan better. We need to plan with a view to the future, not just looking at past climate and past challenges on the weather side, but looking to the future and building, I guess, almost a physical infrastructure life cycle assessment. What is the job we're asking that infrastructure to do over the next 20, 30, 40 years, and making sure that we're planning to build something that's fit for purpose.
Thank you.
And I think that there are standards and there are things that are being done by standard development organizations to develop best practices. There's a best practice document for flood resilient new communities, flood resilient existing communities, and those sorts of things are things that communities should think about.
Thank you very much. Next, we will go to Mr. Albus. Mr. Albus, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses for being here today. I'm actually just going to pick up just on that last point about municipalities being able to so-called build back better. I've seen in places like Princeton and particularly in Merritt, the example of the bridge that has not been restored yet because they're not being allowed to build back better. They're being told that they have to utilize the same standard, even though it's been proven that the Coldwater River has the capacity to sweep through and wipe away the bridge as it did before if they bring back what they had before. So is this something that the Insurance Bureau is seeing more and more, and does it need to be tackled by provincial governments?
The answer is yes. I mean, building for future conditions, not existing conditions, is essential at this point. The insurance industry is looking at how through our policies, essentially, we can encourage building back better to a higher standard than what was there before. But it's essentially a dialogue and with between provinces and levels of government about how do you come up with the funding to make that happen. But yes, we absolutely support. Somebody mentioned the Sendai framework earlier. It's sort of a main tenet internationally. It's an approach that we support.
Conversation with Fire Chief Broom of the West Kelowna Fire Department, very able person, great team there. They have hired a fire smart person to help with interface issues, and WFN, West Bank First Nation, has done a lot as well. Logan Lake, which in 2021 barely escaped from a devastating fire. But it was because Premier Horgan at the time said it was because they made those investments in Fire Smart BC. Now, one of the things that I have, though, is I see in my province continued issues with forest fires. And while I do recognize that climate change is part of the issue, the other question is, is conservation practices. Do you have concerns as the Insurance Bureau of Canada that provincial governments are not properly funding those kinds of things? What kind of ways can we look to help prevent forest fires? Because municipalities sure can do some things, but they can't do everything.
So there is a question about, and it was brought up before, forest management practices. There's a question. There's been some studies done around what could be the role of wetlands around municipalities, encouraging wetland rehabilitation, et cetera, where humidity might be able to play a role. There is obviously the active conversation around fire breaks around municipalities, but it's sort of you need a comprehensive approach. There's the work on wildland urban interface, which again we support in BC, is another. And
again, I'd like to get to those practices because we had 300 or so firefighters from British Columbia and Alaska when many of the fires started in 2021, and they were there to assist the Americans. So there's a lot of decisions that happen where we didn't have the manpower in British Columbia to be able to effectively fight those fires. Could you give us some more concrete examples of what forest practices, management practices need to change?
I have to get back to you with a report. I don't have specifics on it.
If you could just table that with the committee clerk, that would be helpful. Just so that we have that further. And lastly, I'll just touch upon on flooding and whatnot. So one of the things I've heard about your industry is it requires extensive flood mapping and other risk assessments, again, on whether a community is fire smart, et cetera, and that those will have a profound impact on rates. But is there enough mapping going on in places like British Columbia, in fact, across the provinces, that allow your industry to function so that it can make sure that people that are in unsafe areas, that governments and those ratepayers will, through price mechanisms rather than governments having to put oodles of money. I think that's the first level thing we should be asking provinces.
So we've come a long way. So on flood mapping, 7 years ago, the flood maps for this country were terrible. We relied on what we received from Natural Resources Canada as an input, but now there are private sector firms, global private sector firms that model Canada for flood, and their models have come a long way in the last 7 years. Public Safety Canada has taken pretty well all of the existing models and created a comprehensive, probably it's the best in class flood model for the country, and that's what's going to be used for the actuarial analysis for the National Flood Insurance Program. So I would say that whereas flood mapping was more of an issue several years ago, the combination of private sector innovation in the area combined with the recent investments that Natural Resources Canada is using to improve the base mapping has meant that we're in much better shape than we used to be. However, those maps do not predict future conditions. They are all about right now, what is the risk now, and we have a ways to go, not just in Canada, but everywhere around the world, about how do we improve the maps to address that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart, and thank you, Mr. Albus. And finally for today, we'll go to Mr. Callaway. Mr. Callaway, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, and I'll be sharing most of my time with MP Shahal, but I wanted to say, just make an observation that MP O'Connell mentioned around today and everyone agreeing, obviously, the fact that climate change, climate crisis, we can all, I think, come to a common consensus on that. Back home, MP Lewis mentioned he was a firefighter, and it just prompted me to say that all levels of government back home are working hand in glove on what is a once-in-a-lifetime event, we were told, and in 8 months we've had two once-in-a-lifetime events, a massive hurricane in Cape Breton and a massive fire event that is tearing the lives down of people in my community. The work we do here and the work we do as a committee here, and I'm only here for 1 day, is absolutely important. The work you do, whether you're the Insurance Bureau or whether you're a municipality, the time for pointing fingers is over. The time for taking data and turning it into decision is here. So I wanted to make that comment and pass my time over to MP Shahal.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, MP Callaway, for those remarks. Mr. Stewart, I just want to go back to you because you ended off in saying that's provincial jurisdiction. Too many people in my Northeast Calgary constituency have been refused insurance or are paying exorbitant costs, and now it's provincial jurisdiction. This is unfair for my constituents in Northeast Calgary and folks across the country who face similar challenges wherever they are. Our provincial Conservative government has not protected Northeast Calgarians, have not supported us when we went through this crisis. It was left to City Council, it was left to communities to do this. Do you believe there is a role, 'cause as you said earlier, national flood insurance is a unifier? I believe you made those remarks. Is there a role for our federal government to intervene in provincial jurisdiction when it comes to insurance?
I wouldn't say that the role is necessarily to intervene. I would say that the federal government has a leadership role to play in trying to address these gaps. Canada is becoming a riskier place to insure, right? The reinsurers, those are the companies that we pass risk on to globally, they have raised the rates for Canada by up to double for some portions of this country in the last year. And as a result, that means that insurers are paying more, much higher premiums, and they're passing that on to their customers. So it's not just your community that's feeling the pain. I'd say the pain is being felt across the country because Canada is becoming a riskier and riskier place to insure. And so how do you get to how do you reduce the risk, right? Whether it's on auto, do you have some sort of national auto theft strategy that the feds could lead with the RCMP? Is there something that we can collaborate on in that area? With the National Flood Insurance Program, that's a terrific step forward. It's essentially saying, we are going to intervene in the market by entering the market. Federal government is actually saying they're going to be underwriting flood insurance for the country. Massive step forward. In partnership with us, we fully support it. And it's an area in order to keep insurance rates insurance available and affordable for those that live at high risk. And building it to expand to address other challenges when they emerge is also important. So I'd say it's not a Northeast Calgary only issue. It's across the country, and your residents your constituents aren't paying more because of that one hailstorm. It's a trend, and it's a worrying trend that we're seeing.
The trend is that folks in Northeast Calgary prior to that hailstorm were paying much more. And that's the problem. This hailstorm has just made it that much worse. When a provincial government does not initiate or call it a disaster so they don't have to spend $1 to get some dollars from the federal government, that's also what happened. How do folks who live in my communities, they want government. The role of government is to step in and support people when they're going through these challenges and crisis. So whose responsibility is it when the provincial government is not willing to spend any money, not willing to support people, not willing to step in and do their job? Whose responsibility is it? And that's what's happened with our Conservative government in Alberta during that hailstorm. They took a different approach under Premier Redford during the floods, and during these storms took a completely different approach of inaction. Who's responsible then, and who steps in to protect those people?
So I'm going to deliberately sidestep that specific question and say an alternative approach is to address those incentives I mentioned before. Federal government stands up a national flood insurance program, funds it, backstops it, but then relies on the provinces to keep it affordable by undertaking their programming, the necessary program to reduce the risk at a provincial level. That's, we have to be really smart and innovative around these exact questions. How do you make sure it's in the province's best interest to act for their constituents?
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you so much for your testimony today.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the members for their great line of questioning today, and I'd like to thank all the witnesses for appearing and for sharing their important testimony with us for this very important study. With that, the meeting is adjourned.